Okay, so welcome back, and we are live on YouTube on my channel. So in case you don't get the opportunity to join the Zoom, or you have the option, it's not even an opportunity, you can join the tutorial session on my YouTube channel live. The same thing is happening as we are doing it on Zoom. So you can pass, I guess some people will be locked behind the doors. The account takes a maximum of 300 participants. And if everybody should be able to join, or if everybody decides to join, it means we will overflow the capacity of the account. So those who will not be able to join, you can pass the information to them. They can join us on YouTube. We are live on YouTube right now. Today's tutorial is kind of going to prepare our minds for the quiz, which we have to do tomorrow. It is not difficult, please. Nothing actually is difficult. Difficulty is an issue of lack of information. And lack of information can come about because you refuse the information, or sometimes you don't have the means to get it. In our case, we have the means to get the information. So if we don't have information and therefore we don't understand, then it's a choice. Then it's a choice. Okay. So we should have the questions before us. I shared it to you yesterday on your Google Classroom platform. You should have it and preferably maybe printed it down, and then you have your computer before you so that you can just do as I do. That's how this kind of learning is like. You can't just listen to it and go and sleep and want to go and read on it later. No, it's a doing course. It's not a reading course. So you have to do it. That's why I always appeal to you to, even if you don't have the laptop yourself, and you don't need to have a laptop by yourself before you can use one. Laptop is not really like a phone. Laptop can be shared, and of course, you have been sharing laptops. People watch series, lengthy ones and different ones, but they don't have laptops. So use that same means, get a laptop from a friend so that you can do. Otherwise, you can't understand it, and that will not be my problem. It will be your problem. Okay. So let's get to business. I'm going to read through the question briskly, and then I'll give all of us a maximum of 3 minutes to read a question by himself or herself. And when you are reading it for that second time by yourself, the intention is that you should begin to kind of engage with the question. Engage with the question. Try to see the question from solution perspective. Okay, so I'm reading it. Case study, Introduction to Business Analysis. J&P Enterprises operates a mini supermarket at Amamuma in Cape Coast, Central Region. Daily sales records of one of the products sold by the company or the business are presented below in Table 5.1, titled Monthly Sales Units for J&P Enterprises. Month, and then the sales unit for each of the months. January to December. January, sales that were taken in that month is 1,234. February sales takings 997 Ghana cedis. March 2003 Ghana cedis. April 1984 cedis. May 898 cedis. June 900 cedis. July 1,800 cedis. August 1,578 cedis. September 2,110 cedis. October 900 cedis. November, 2,404 cedis, and December, 3,457. So these are the sales that were recorded in these respective months. Then the question continues. It costs J&P Enterprises 12 Ghana cedis to purchase 1 unit of the product. So they sell some products, and the monthly sales they made on that product is the data I've already given. They buy 1 unit of that product for 12 cedis. And when they buy it from the supplier, they have to put it in a car, either a taxi. I don't know where they buy it from anyway, but they definitely need to carry it from the supplier's end to the business premises of J&P Enterprises. The carriage, the cost of carrying the goods to their business premises, and other costs incurred in bringing the product to a sellable point. So everything put together, on average, is 2 Ghana cedis per unit of the product. This is so cheap. J&P sells 1 unit of the product for 20 cedis. Operating costs for the period are provided as follows. So we have another table which is providing us information on other costs, and these are yearly costs, or maybe the full period costs. So selling and distribution expenses, so sometimes these ones are overhead, so they come in their block. It's not per unit. It's not really tied with the units. It kind of stays on itself, so they are fixed costs. Selling and distribution expenses, 12,000 for the period. Administration or administrative overheads, 20,000. Depreciation, 18,800. Wages and salaries, 30,000. The requirements are, we are to prepare a report, kind of an analysis, showing monthly gross margins, annual profits, and then the B part is assuming operating expenses accrue evenly over the period, prepare a report of monthly net margins. The main point in this kind of analysis is that you have, so take yourself for the business owner of this kind of business. You sell products, you buy them, you have the cost you pay for them from the supplier, and you have information on how much it takes you to bring the goods to your selling point. So you have all of that information. And in a particular year, so from January to December of a particular year, these are the sales you made for that particular product, which we are discussing. What you want to see is that given the cost at which you bought the product and some transportation costs, which should be added to the cost of the product, the question is, how do you see whether you are making profits or you're not making profits? This is the sales you made in each of the months. You need to have a way of seeing these sales alongside the costs of generating these sales in the month. That's what we call the cost of sales. Then you can see, okay, in each month, this is how much I took for sales, and this is the cost I incurred in making the sales, so this is my margin. And that will help you to see whether month by month, how the product is doing in terms of margins, in terms of profitability. And whether you are doing a big business or a small business, this is something very basic you want to see about your business. And therefore, being in school, if you don't know, if you don't learn how to do these things, then there's no point in you schooling. Yeah. And one thing I also want you to have at the back of your mind is, for a typical classroom illustration, this may be around the size of the data set we'll be explaining things around. but we will actually be dealing with a very large data set. I told you this course has as part of it a project which you will do. That's the main reason for the peer learning groups, the so-called learning communities. We are done with the creation of them. So today, after maybe the tutorial, I'll finalize and we'll send them to you. What you need to do about the groupings is that you will need to meet yourselves, whether someone is your friend or not, whether you know someone or you don't know the person, doesn't matter. It's purely for academic things. You never knew anybody in the class you are in now, but you have to still learn together. So that's how it works. And you will need to have a regular meeting session. I will take information about that, and marks will be awarded for that. I will pay an informal visit to all the groups at least once before the semester ends. In each group, you will have to find a leader. And the leader should be someone who is passionate about what we are doing, not someone who is lazy. Then the whole group becomes lazy. And the group leader or the group leaders, you can choose to elect to have any number of leaders for yourselves. That's up to you. The group leader or leaders should give me feedback on whether group members are cooperating in making the groups function for the intended purpose, or whoever is lackadaisical, you have to give me feedback about it. Okay, so that's just by the way, about the groupings. So the analysis is about what I just explained about the data. You can do this analysis in Excel. You can do it in some other software. What you don't have to do is to take your calculator and a pen and do this on a paper. You don't have to do that. That's a crime. So for the purposes of this tutorial, what we are going to do is to open a Jupyter notebook and use Python to do the analysis. And you will see that it is very flexible, very, very simple, very cheap, doing it with a software than doing it without the software. So at this point, let me share my screen, then we can begin the discussion. Okay, so by now you should see my shared screen. Yeah. So you see something like a fresh notebook. Yeah, so you can also open a fresh notebook. Who are the people writing on the screen? Alfred, find those students for me. Find the student, their names come, find them for me. Okay, so welcome back to the Jupyter Notebook screen. For the sake of those who are new to, Python and this kind of interface, the Jupyter Notebook, I will have to explain some basic stuff. For those who are already okay, like the accounting students, because of the course they took last semester, they should be okay. We try to import all the packages which are going to be used for the kind of analysis we are going to do. So you have to understand the analysis you have to do and connect it to the packages inside Python, the Python ecosystem, and then you choose those ones that are applicable. In our case, we will need NumPy. Maybe it's just that NumPy is always imported alongside pandas because they always work together. So we'll import NumPy, we'll import pandas. These are the two basic tools we need. And we may import matplotlib. We can do the plotting, the basic plotting from pandas data frame itself because it inherits those plotting capabilities. But maybe for more flexibility with the visualization, we may have to do certain things with matplotlib. So I'm going to import the packages. And all you do is you just use the keyword import. And then they'll come for you to use it. So import NumPy as NP. You can import it with just any alias. It's just that by tradition, we have always been importing it as NP. Import pandas as PD. Import matplotlib dot pyplot as PLT. Well, you can import it just with any alias, which is more flexible for you. So we will do the importation. And when everything is right, so let's see, it gives us an error. Let's see what's saying. No model named matplotlib. Okay. Okay, so I think I misspelled the matplotlib. So it doesn't actually know what I have typed because the one I wanted to call is not really called the way I have typed it. So I'm just correcting the mistake. Matplotlib. So let's run the cell again and see. Okay, it's okay now. So we have our standard packages imported. We just need to create a data frame. First of all, create a data frame for the data we have. So by now, everybody should know the structure of a data frame and everybody should be able to create it. This is not difficult. If you still have a problem, then indeed you have a problem. So I'm going to create the data frame. I'm going to call the data frame maybe sales DF. It can be just any name. So at your end, you can give it any name that you think is okay. But it should be descriptive of what we are trying to do. Maybe sales analysis. Let me call it sales analysis. So that's objects to be assigned is the data frame. So PD dot data frame. And I'm going to set the data we have in our question. First of all, as a dictionary, and then call the data frame on the dictionary. In other words, I'm going to pass the dictionary objects straight into the data frame function. So that's the meaning of me doing the curly braces like this. Okay. So we are doing the dictionary, and the dictionary will automatically be encased in the data frame function. And when we run, it will create a data frame for us. So the first column, the column title is month. So quotation, month, colon. And I'm just going to use a list to type the name of the months. So each of the names is also a string. So you type it as such. So quotation, January. I'm really going to type all of them as small letters because you have the flexibility of changing them if you want, just with a code. January, comma, February. Okay, maybe just for the sake of time, let me use the abbreviation versions of them. Okay, so just in case what you are typing is kind of becoming too long and maybe even part of it not visible, what you can do is that you can break or you can kind of send the rest of the code down. And this is how you do it. You have to bring this character like this, then you can come down. When you do it like this, the program understands that you have not ended it. It's just a continuation, but you just prefer to continue it down. So September, October, November, December. Okay, then we are done with this key value pair, one of them. So comma, then we are going to the next one. The next one is the sales units. So sales units, that is the label. And then we are going to put the various sales also in a list. So the first one is 1, 2, 3, 4. Next one, 997, 2003, 1984, 898, 900, 1800, 1578, 2110, 900, 2404. And if you like, we can bring the rest down like this so we can see all of them fully. So 3, 4, 5, 3. Okay, so we are done. So when we run this cell, it will create a data frame in the name of an object called sales analysis. And then we can begin the analysis from there. So let's run the cell and see. Okay, so it's giving us some information on why possibly there's a mistake. It says perhaps you forgot a comma. So let's see. Let's see first of all for the month. So January, comma, February, comma, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Okay, so I think it is here. Comma should be here before the next one. So comma, then October. Then let's look at this one too. Okay, I think comma should have been here. Okay, so let's run and see. Okay, so that's fine. So we have our data frame created. We can now begin to see how it looks like Well, you can, if you want it to be, you want to see it more from a graphical perspective, you can choose to see the head. The head is by default the first 5 rows of the data frame. So we can do the name of the object is sales analysis. So we can do sales analysis dot head. And that makes us see the first 5 rows. It's just to kind of see, okay, is what the data I've created really how I want it to be? Is it really what it should be? Yeah, something like that. You you will also have to kind of find some detailed info about the whole data set. So you can do sales analysis dot info. Okay, so that's the function that returns some summarized information about the objects. Okay, so it's kind of telling us there are a total of 2 columns. So total columns, it says total is 2 columns. And these are the column names, month and sales. And it also tells you the total number of rows. It tells you that's the range index. 12 entries from 0 to 11. Okay, so that's it. And we can also do, I'm doing all of these things because typically we'll be doing these analysis on a very large data set. And this is what we try to do to get a sense of what the data set is about. Let's say the data that we have imported and we are analyzing is about 30 columns and let's say about 50,000 rows. Yeah, you can't scroll through all of them like that. In Excel, that's the only option you have if you want to familiarize yourself with the data set. You will have to scroll left or right to kind of see all the columns in the data sets and maybe scroll all the way down to about 50,000 records. And sometimes as you are doing that, depending on the resources of your computer can even be getting stuck along the line. Python's approach is kind of not you doing all of those things. You can call a summarize information of the data sets. You don't really need to scroll and see everything. So for example, if this were like 50,000 rows across, let's say, 30 columns, doing sales analysis.info will make you see, okay, this is the total number of columns in the data set, total number of rows in the data set, and to give you all the names of the columns, plus whether there is some missing values under some of the columns and their data types. So this is quite informative. Okay, so now that the data is okay, it's the way we want it. In a typical analysis, if you have issues of missing values, if you have some columns of a wrong data type because you imported it from some source, you will have to do all of those cleaning. That's what they call data pre-processing. You have to do all of those kinds of things. And it's very simple and very interesting if you are using code to kind of manage those kind of problems. Okay, so for now, let's go ahead. The question is, we are supposed to calculate monthly gross margins. So let me just allow kind of cool down a bit, allow those who are trying to follow up in the creation of the data frame to finish up, right? Finish up. Well, okay, let me proceed. So we will want to do marginal analysis. What I mean by that is Prosper. Alfred, find Prosper Buzu or something. Please do well and find that name for me. Anything like Prosper and BU, the surname is BU something. I didn't see the full name. Find that person for me. So we want to have a column maybe next to the sales units. No, first of all, these are units. We don't even have the money equivalents of these values. These are like, if the product is, let's say, markets, like 1,234 markets, what's the value of it? What's the sales in Ghana cedis? So we need to create a column to kind of calculate the sales amount. Then we also have to calculate a revenue column. And the revenue column can be calculated on these sales units because they gave us the sales price per unit. So when we multiply it by this, we get a revenue. Then we have enough data to kind of proceed with the analysis. So first of all, what I would have to do again is to create variables for units purchase price or unit cost price, if you like, and also unit selling price, because we will need those kind of variables in our analysis. So I'm going to do cost per unit. So let me make it cost price. Okay, that's a bit more straight to the point. So cost price, and that is in the question. Let's go and find what that value should be. It costs J&P Enterprises. I'm reading just below the first table. It costs J&P Enterprises 12 cedis to purchase 1 unit of the product. And it is not just only this 12 cedis. They told us that on the average, there's a carriage cost of 2 cedis per unit. And from your financial reporting perspective, you understand that this is a cost that we need to capitalize. I think that treatment is actually governed by IAS 2 or so. I don't know if it is revised into a different name. So that will be a total of 12 plus 2, which is 14. So cost price is 14. Then let's create the sales or selling price. Let's say it's the usual way we normally say it. Selling price. Let me even add per unit so that it becomes very specific. It's just that I will have to type a lot of words. And this one too should be cost price per unit. So this is equal to, the question told us J&P sells 1 unit of the product, that is the selling price per unit, for 20 cedis. So this is 20. So we have created all the necessary objects which will be used in our analysis. So now I want to go and increase the columns of our data frame because we need sales amount or sales in Ghana cedis and then revenue in Ghana cedis, at least to proceed with what the question is requiring. To do that, because I'm going to create the columns on this existing data frame, I'll have to type the code on that data frame. So I'll say sales analysis. Then I use this square bracket. What this square bracket is doing is like, it's kind of indexing a column. So when I do sales analysis and I do month, see what will happen. month, it will index that column. It will kind of slice that column. So that's how it works. So when I do it like this, and I pass a different name, which cannot be read from the existing column names, the data frame, Pandas understands that I want to create a new column with that. That's how it understands it. So we want to create a column which is going to multiply sales units by cost price per unit so that we get the money value of it. What name should we call it? Maybe cost of sale. So once it is cost, it is money. So cost of sale, create that column, and the values should be, that's the meaning of the assignment there. The values should be calculated as sales analysis, the column called sales units, multiplied by cost price per unit. That is basic formula. So sales units, let me just, and of course, to reduce the typing mistakes, you can come and copy it as it is exactly there because it has to be the same. So I'll put it here. Multiplied by the cost price per unit, this one. Yeah, that's the formula. And this formula is a formula that everybody knows from even your basic accounting at SHS. So when I do that, it will create that column. Because I didn't request for the data frame to be shown, that's why you don't see. So we can, call the data frame to be shown, and the name is sales analysis. Okay. So you can see that we have that new column created, cost of sale, which is a multiplication of sales units and the cost price per unit. Good. So we can use the same technique to create all the other columns that we require. So we still need to create another column, which is the revenue. So let's do that. Square brackets, and we are going to type revenue. And I'm going to assign it this formula for it to do that calculation. The formula should be what? Sales units multiplied by selling price per unit. So sales analysis column called sales units let me just be sure if yeah, sales units multiplied by a variable or object named as selling price per unit, this one. Okay, so let me call the data frame as part of the code. The frame's name is this. Okay, so we can visualize that we have the revenue column also created. This is not difficult. If you think this is difficult, then I don't know what will be cheap for you. So at this point, we can begin to respond to, I think, some of the main demands in the question. Monthly gross margins. Monthly gross margin is simply your revenue minus your cost of sale. Okay, so we need another column which subtracts cost of sale from revenue for each of the months, then we can see that. So it's still the same old thing, sales analysis, and we're going to create a new column called, how should we even name that column? Margins. Yeah, it's okay to call it margins. And it is assigned this formula. The formula is, of course, you can calculate it in many ways. I'm just going to do it the simple way. Revenue minus this. So it's going to be sales analysis column called revenue minus sales analysis column called cost of sale. Okay, I think I did cost of sale. Well, let's maintain the cost of sales. So sometimes we say cost of sales, but I've already typed it. I can go and change it anyway, but let's maintain it, cost of sale. What it means is that I need to make sure I am using the same column name. Otherwise, it will give me error feedback. So cost of sale yeah. So we have created that column. Let's call the data frame so that we see. So we have the margins there. This again is not difficult. It's very simple. Doing it with your calculator and your pen and your book is rather the difficult option. You have to begin to see that thing. Now, what do we do? At least we have responded to the I part of the requirement A, monthly gross margin. So we can see that in January the margin was more than 7,000. In February it dropped, and it is about 6,000. In March it shoot up more than 12,000, and in April it dropped from the March value, so it's about almost the same 12,000. So there's a marginal decrement, right? Sometimes the best way to kind of see this is to visualize it. For example, it will be so boring if you have to scroll through 50,000 rows to kind of see the trend, the deviations in this column. It will be difficult. The eye doesn't really like it to see it this way. The human eye doesn't love to see things that way. It always loves to see it in a picture form. Yeah. So we can do sales analysis column called maybe margins. We can visualize margins first. Dot plot. Dot plot by default is a line, and that's what we need. If you need something else, not a line, then you can specify what you need in this parenthesis using a keyword argument called kind. So you say kind equals, and in our case, kind equals line. So I can do line, even though it is the default. If I don't pass this arguments. Okay, so the kind is wrong, sorry. The kind is not with E, good. So when I run this, it will give me a line, and it is the default, so you might not want to kind of bring this one. Okay, so this is what the eye likes, not the values. And it is just these same values that we have converted to this visualization. So you can see that, okay, it started on some high value, not that high per se, but it started like this, it dropped, and it's increased sharply. So you can go and even see it from your data. It started from here, and it dropped, and it increased by high value. So it's kind of giving you all of those trends in the data. Okay. So you can do these separate visualizations on all the columns to get a sense of how things are going. In the broader data analysis framework, we call these kinds of analysis, we give it a group name called exploratory data analysis. So many things go into that, but what we are doing is also part of it, exploratory data analysis. So you're exploring the data to kind of see, okay, the data have this dimension. This is what it looks like. This is the shape. This is the trend. This is maybe the skewness in the data, blah, 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 blah. So that you now begin to even connect it with your statistics, because your statistics gives you a lot of tools about the shapes of data and what you can do to get what. Okay. The II part says we should do annual profit calculation. And it's very simple. We have our margins for each of the months for the 12 months. So a sum of the margins gives us the annual margins. If you like, maybe I think you should have repeated. We should have repeated the same word for margins. It means the same thing, the margins and the profits. Let me see the B part. Okay, from the way the question is set, let's say, okay, this one is gross margins. Okay, so let me go and change the name from margins to gross margins, because they mean something different from what I've typed. I'll explain. Gross margins. And what is going to happen is that when I create it again, you see this data frame is already created with a margins column. When I run this code again with this new label, it will kind of create another one. So we'll have margin and net margins, which means later we need to go and write a code to drop what is the redundant one. Okay, so we have our gross margins. I just changed the name. I could have called a rename on this margins and just change it to gross margins. And you remember we did something like that. But I decided to do it this way so that we can also take the opportunity of knowing how we can drop a column from a data frame. So let me come here. If you have to visualize again, we will do that. So let me just remove this code. And we are just going to drop the margins column. So I'm going to do sales analysis margins dot, no, the code is like this, sales analysis dot drop. And then inside the parentheses, I have to specify what I'm dropping. So I can do columns equals, and I just need to indicate the name of the column, margins. Margins, okay. So it is dropped, but I just want to be sure. Sometimes the code just give you a view of what you have coded, but the underlying data frame is still the same. So let me just call sales analysis again. Yeah, I told you it still has it. So this one is just a view. It does not really replace it. One way we can kind of replace the table is to set, okay, this one is giving us the table we want. So we can set this new table against the old one. What it means is that we want to replace it. Or you can pass another argument in this parenthesis, which is called in place. And then you set in place is equal to true. And this is how you type the true, capital T. What that means is that you want that kind of code to, that kind of new table, which is generated by this code, to replace. to be the one in place, sort of. Okay. So it has done it. So when I call cell analysis, you will see it's this way. So we have dropped the unnecessary column. So we have our gross margins. So when we sum the gross margins for all of the months, we'll get our annual gross margin. These are monthly gross margin. We get our annual gross margin. So maybe we can calculate that and save it in a different object. Let's call it annual. Sorry. Annual gross margin. And it can be calculated with this formula. Sales analysis.
So I am going to allow it. I try to do that with the next allowing.
Sales analysis, column gross margins, I just want to go and see if it, yeah, that's our title, gross margins dot sum. What this code is doing is okay. Students, we have a guest, a very prominent guest, of course, and he wants to introduce himself to you. I have to. Okay, he says I have to introduce him. I'm going to cause you to unmute yourself so that okay, so Professor Chenabua is here and he wants you to speak to him. So you can unmute your microphone and say 1 or 2 words. We are using just about 1 or 2 minutes and then we proceed. Well, say something.
Hello, class.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello.
Bonsoir.
Yeah, like muted like that.
Okay, so when we do this code, sales analysis is the whole data frame. When I do square brackets and I pass, this is a column name. I'm saying that I want to slice this column of the data phrase and sum all the values for that column. So dot sum, and this is how you type it. We are saving the results in an object called annual gross margin. So if I want you to see the value, I can bring the annual gross margin as part of the code. And let's run and see. So this is the value. 121,566. You can use your calculator to check, but please don't try it if you are dealing with more than about 50,000 rows of data. And you're going to use your calculator to do this plus that 50,000 times. Hey, that's insane. Okay, so that's how you do it to get the annual gross margin. If you have an annual gross margin, we don't have our annual profits yet because there are some other operating costs that were given as this. So we can create an object for these other costs, selling and distribution expenses, administrative expenses, depreciation, blah, blah, blah. We can create an object for it so that we can kind of treat it on this one. So if you know the sum of these objects, I mean, the sum of this, we can add it to this one, and that will be fine. So let's create the object. Let's call it annual operating expenses. And we can, what object can we create? We can create a series for this. We can create a data frame just that it will be a series, just one column. We can even create a list. So you can use different designs. All you want to do is that you want a container for these values so that you can compute the sum of that value and kind of operate it on the sum of the gross margins in whatever appropriate way so that you can get your net profit. So if I do a list, which is more basic because I don't want trouble, but you can use other data structures like series. Then I have a list of, I'm only interested in the sum. That's why I'm not using a data structure which will specify the various names like selling price, administrative expenses. At this point, all I need is a sum of those values so that I will subtract it from this gross margin and get my net margin or net profit. So I can use a list, but you have to understand a list by itself, by the nature it is, doesn't take any function for you to do a sum. So maybe you will want to do it with NumPy. Or if you do it with a list, you may have to call a NumPy sum, np.sum, and pass the list inside because the list itself doesn't have a method which can make you do summation directly. Whichever way, so let's do it. So I have 12,000 and I have 20,000, 18,800, 30,000. Yeah. So I can do this and then I can say annual, let me copy this. Annual operating expenses. Actually, this is what I want to do. np.sum and I pass this variable, which is a variable which contain these values. And it should be able to return to me the sum of the operating expenses. And if I store, let's say I store this as some variable. So I'll call this sum operating expenses. I'm assigning this value, this figure 800, which is returned by this code. I'm storing the value in this object called sum operating expense. And how did we store this one? This one is annual gross margin. So let's do something and see. If we do annual gross margin here minus some operating expenses, let's see what it can return if it makes sense. Yes, it solves your problem. So this is the net profit. There can be several ways of obtaining the same value. This is just one of them. You can learn many ways. Some ways can even be more intelligent than this one. That's why you are students. You have to learn more. So at this point, we have been able to deal with requirements, the 4A, the whole of requirements A. And then B, let's see what B is saying. Assuming operating expenses accrue evenly over the period, prepare a report for monthly net profit. What it is trying to say is that we have to make some serious assumption. It might not be truthful anyway. We are trying to say that if you take any of the operating expenses like selling and distribution expenses, which is 12,000 for the whole year, we should assume that they were incurred equally for all of the months. So we are using the average. In other words, we have to divide this annual figure by 12 because we have 12 months, and the value we get is the value for each month, so that you can subtract that value from the gross margin for each month and get the net profit for each month. So we can go ahead and do that. In that case, let's try to see how we can create a column, because that's a column 10. We are going to have 12 rows, so it will match this for us to do it in a tabular form. So what formula would we do? We can do, the data frame's name is sales analysis. Let me copy it. We are creating a new column, which will be monthly operating expenses. So let's do it like this. And we are saying it should be calculated as the annual gross, no, sum operating system. Sum, yeah, we can do it like that. We have the sum. If you divide the sum by 12, it means that for each month, that is the operating expense that we incurred. We can do it by that means. So we can do sum operating expense divided by 12 for that column. So that is going to be that. Let's do that and see if it works. Sum operating expense divided by 12. So that should be the value that should hit every month. Okay, so it's created it. Let's call the data frame and see. Okay, so monthly operating expense is there. It's going to be a constant value because that's the average. And now you can do another column which says gross margins for each month minus operating expense for each month. And that will be monthly net profit. So let's create another column and call it that way. So sales analysis, I'm creating a column. Sorry. A column called monthly net profit. And it is created by the formula. What's even the formula? Yeah. subtracting one column from another. So gross margins, this gross margins. So we'll have sales analysis, gross margins minus same sales analysis, but this time around, what's the name of this column? Monthly. I think it wasn't even needful for me to have brought the monthly because by the way it appears, everything is months. But that's how we have named it, so let's copy it like that. So that should replace here. So let me read the formula again. We are just subtracting the column called gross margin on the sales analysis data frame. We are doing that column minus another column called sales monthly operating expenses. So let's call the data frame to show so that we see that column created. So we have monthly net profit, which is a subtraction. You can look at it in the case of the first month. 7,404 minus about 678. Is the value right? I mean, just try to confirm if this 670 is correct. 7,404 minus 6,733. It should be right. Yeah, so that's how you can respond to the analysis, I mean, in terms of the demands of the question. There can be so many ways of doing it in Python. Python offers very flexible way of handling this. So many ways of doing the same thing. So you can explore other ways of doing it and you'll be fine. So thank you very much. This is the end of the tutorial. We have finished solving the question. If you have any questions, the floor is open now. Any questions, please? No questions.
I see.
They can unmute for themselves. Oh, okay. Please, do you have any questions?
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, beautiful. So
Please,
let's
can
end
you
it
just
here.
go right?
Can I
Hello,
do
sir.
what? What can I do for you?
Please, can you go right from the top
To
to
down.
the... Yes, please.
What I can do, okay, what I think would be more appropriate to do is probably, okay, this is where we started. We started from here. We started from here. We imported these packages and then we created the basic data. We expanded the data frame to accommodate for other columns, which we need for the analysis. And we have proceeded with the analysis and we are done. So maybe what I have to do is to save this notebook and share it with you.
Okay, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. I believe that will be good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will have it.
Okay, so
Yes, sir, that would be very good.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
that's great, sir.
Indeed, it would be nice.
Amazing, amazing.
please go ahead. I think your connectivity is a problem.
Please, is the quiz going to be like this?
Oh, you.
Yeah, please, I have a
Again,
question.
please. Someone was asking a question. I didn't get it well.
Is the quiz going to be like this?
Is the quiz going to be like this?
Yes, sir.
The quiz can be anything as we have learned from day one in class up till today as we are doing tutorial.
Hey.
Yeah, that's why you are learning them.
Sir, please, let's talk about it.
Hello, sir. Question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, please, are we supposed to bring our laptops?
It's a must because some of the questions will be like what we are doing. You have to code to know what is happening, so you can understand exactly what is happening. So ideally, everybody should come with a laptop. If you don't come with a laptop, you're at a disadvantage position. So even if you don't have the laptop yourself, like I told you from the beginning, you can watch series without having the laptop by yourself. So use the same to do something which can affect you. Mandy, your network is a bit problem.
Please, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Are we supposed to bring pen drive so that we can away?
You can do what? Are you going to use the pen drive to write?
Sir, please,
So you will be provided. We will do it just around how we did the end of semester last semester. So you will provide your answers if the question is asking you to write something, whether it's a code or it's some result, you will write it on an answer booklet for us. We will take that one. The computer will just help you to do your coding to know how things are working. Then you write the solution for us on the answer booklet. Is that okay? Yeah, I guess it is okay. So we can end the session here and prepare for the quiz too. Thank you very much.